Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, everyone. I hope this video, this podcast, finds you in good health and secure. I'm Sifu Sylvain. This channel is offered as a means of study and support to create a strong practice of conviction and confidence that when you chant the Daimoku, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, you are, Namu, thus I have heard, the self-expression, self-manifestation, self-instantiation of Buddha clarity in my mind and experience, Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu, thus I have heard, Myoho Renge Kyo, self-enlightenment. This teaching so profound. And in our world today, in the world as Shakyamuni foretold and Nichiren explicates, full of greed, manipulation, stupidity, we samsaric beings sure are an incorrigible bunch. We like our stuff. I'm reminded again that the universe and our lives don't happen to us, but for us. They are a part of the same manifestation as we, our own conscious mind is. All of this is for you, with the sole purpose of being able to perceive it as such. How magnificent this process is to be alive. It doesn't require that you have stuff, or that you get more stuff, or that you don't lose stuff. All of those anxieties, those stresses, are all created by our samsaric mind, our karmic desire to be. And as Buddhists, we learn to move from to be into being. Because life is a verb, not a noun. And when you start to live it as a verb, then all of those attachments, those things that cause us stress and anxiety, they're released from that mental conditioning, and they become awesome experiences, unattached, just being as we are, as all life is. So we're going to continue with the essay on gratitude from Nichiren. He's at the point now where he's going to point out the grave error of slandering the true Dharma. Because if you work to obfuscate that clear understanding of the world and life and its opportunity, then you are working toward the things thignifying and attachment and dissuading you from that wonderful affirmation toward deeper stresses and anxiety, or as it's described in the literature, the translations anyway, as the hell of incessant suffering. It's incessant because we continue to compound it. There's no need to do that. Still, it's our habit energy, our karmic energy, that thinks the answer is there, but it really isn't. It is what manifested us, what constitutes us getting all of these fascinating processes that we embody. But it doesn't have to continue to be that way. We can allow it. Of course, the experience is to be had, but we can move to a higher state of observation to deeply appreciate all those mechanisms and forces that is life. Yeah. Nichiren continues, on the 12th of the 9th month in the 8th year of Bunei era in 1271, when I was arrested, I declared to Heino Simon and hundreds of his soldiers, quote, I, Nichiren, am a pillar of Japan. I am the pillar of Japan. When you kill me, you cut down the pillar of Japan. Now this is, of course, a reference to Tatsunokuchi and the order to behead him. He had sent a very elaborate book, a remonstration, to the head of the elites, the head of the shogunate. He said, look, if you want to avoid all this trouble you've had, Japan's been hit by famine and storms and civil wars everywhere, and there's an impending invasion coming from the Mongol Empire. It's because we're not respecting life properly. Everything we do is substantiation of war and violence, and it's antithetical, especially to the scholarship of Buddhism, which all of Japan claims to believe in and practice Buddhism, but they're actually practicing its opposite. They're practicing actively against it because of all this corruption in the Buddhist schools. If we could just, if you could, as you've done in the past, create an edict that addresses the situation and redirects Buddhism toward self-enlightenment rather than ritualistic mumbo-jumbo, then the mind of the nation would be in a much better position to create life-affirming energy and not attract all of these life-unaffirming events, all this disturbance, all of this weakness, which other powerful nations like the Mongols see as an invitation to come and take. Don't you see the Japanese mindset is incorrect? This is what's creating the problem. Well, Heino Simon's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. God, who do you think you are? Shut this guy up. Cut his head off. That's basically what's happening here, right? So Nichiren, as I don't want to call it a last-ditch effort, but his last opportunity on the day of his supposed beheading, he starts preaching, appealing to those Buddhists and samurai who are Buddhists what the situation is. Your leader wouldn't listen to me, but I'm going to tell you guys, so you have an opportunity to address your practice and your way of living and your ideas about, yes, Japan, but your own life, your enlightenment. Before I'm gone, I'm gonna help rescue as many of you as possible from all this corruption and stupidity. Now, many of them probably don't want to hear that. They're like, yeah, I can see why the boss wants you beheaded. But many of them are listening to his words because he's making sense. So he says, now it is said in those sutras that if the wise man is punished by the rulers of the land because of calumnies of evil priests or slandering words of the people, immediately there will be a civil war. And they're all familiar with civil war. It's not a fun thing. Gales and foreign invasion. They're all very much aware that Japan's in trouble. He goes on, a civil war broke out within the Hojo clan in the second month of the 9th year of Bunei era in 1272. This is a year later. A terrible wind blew in the 4th month in the 11th year of the Bunei era, probably a hurricane, right? The Mongols invaded Japan in the 10th month of the same year. Foreign invaders. Aren't these solely due to Nichiren being persecuted? So he's taking ownership of that prediction. He's saying, well, here's an example. I wasn't beheaded, obviously, but only at the last second did I escape from that. As I predicted these in my treatise on spreading peace throughout the country by establishing the true Dharma, the remonstration that he sent Heinon Simon, how can anyone have doubts about it? I predicted this would happen if you continued to violate the true teachings and get rid of the corruption in the minds of the Japanese people, certainly through their teachers. And being the only one to voice it out and singling me out to cause violence toward me, as I read all the quotations and all the sutras that demonstrate the repercussions of such an act, well, they happened. Hello? Doesn't that prove what I was saying is correct? For a long time, he continues, Japan has been cursed with the false view of Kobo, Chikaku, and Chisho, and by the calamities of the Zen and Pure Land schools. These are all corrupt, incorrect, misleading, poisoning the minds of the Japanese people. He continues, it is as though giant waves caused by gales piled up on the top of great earthquakes. Therefore, Japan grew steadily weaker, as I was saying before, weaker in its life state. Yeah. Lay monks, Taira no Kiyomori, the ex-prime minister, monopolized governmental power. After the Jokyu incident, in which 3 ex-emperors were exiled, the power shifted to the east. Nevertheless, these troubles then were only within the country, as no foreign powers had invaded Japan. There were a great many slanderers of the true Dharma throughout the country. But no sagacious person appeared to pinpoint them. So outwardly, the country was at peace, but within the country, there's a lot of disagreements, turmoil, right? He continues, for example, a sleeping lion will not roar if nobody wakes it. If nobody puts an oar in a rapid current, it will not cause high waves. A burglar will not get angry if nobody is in his way. Without adding fuel, fire will not burn briskly. If nobody points out the grave error of slandering the true Dharma, the land will appear to be at peace. Now, I'm not sure if he's taking a wise tact here. I get his point, but he's singling himself out again, right? It was under such a situation that Buddhism came to Japan. There was no commotion in the beginning, but when Mononobe no Moriya burnt images of the Buddha, persecuted Buddhist monks, and burnt down Buddhist temples, a rain of fire fell from heaven, smallpox spread throughout the country, and fighting broke out one after another. These circumstances were quite different from those at present. Slanderers of the true Dharma fill this country now. I, Nichiren, attack them at the risk of my life. I keep pointing out their errors, causing fighting no less fierce than a battle between Ashura demons and Indra, or one between the Buddha and the king of the demons. So he's identifying himself. I'm creating a lot of unrest here, but it's because I'm trying to reform this corruption. But the corruption's fighting back. Yeah, it's comfortable. In the Sutra of the Golden Splendor, it is said, quote, there will be a time when an enemy king of a neighboring land will begin harboring an idea of leading 4 kinds of troops, trying to destroy that land of slanderers. Not because they're slanderers, but because slandering and misunderstanding the teachings and acting against them creates a lot of disarray, creates a lot of lost minds, unrest, disorganization. In that state, how can you protect that which is valuable, from your family to your lands to your world, your country, your Japan in this instance? You lose the security that's always there, but you're fighting against it because of the polluted ideas that are being promoted. Do you see the connection? It also says, quote, there will be a time when a king, having observed the situation, wants to lead 4 kinds of troops to chastise the land of the slanderers. So in the event that this other land does understand the correct practice of Buddhism, they may be motivated to come in and straighten things out. At that time, we various deities, together with our subordinates, such as numerous semigods, this is still the quotation from the sutra, called yaksa, will come in to help the king so that his enemies will surrender spontaneously. End quote. Thus it is said in the Sutra of the Golden Splendor, the Sutra of the Great Assembly, and the Sutra of the Benevolent King preach the same. According to these sutras, it seems that if a king hates those who practice the true Dharma and supports those who practice the false teachings, the great king of the Brahma heaven, Indra, the sun and moon gods, and 4 heavenly kings will enter the body of a wise king in a neighboring country and attack the evil kingdom. It is like King Himatala attacking King Krita, and King Baladitya defeating King Mihirakula. King Krita and King Mihirakula destroyed Buddhism in India. And that's actual fact. India, the land that spawned Shakyamuni Buddha, at a point, drove Buddhism from its borders. Fascinating, yes? In China, all those kings who destroyed Buddhism were defeated by sagacious kings. This is again a huge statement of attitude and intent. In your own life, in my life, think of yourself as the country. If you adopt negative, life unaffirming thoughts like depression, like distrust of everyone, if your mind is negative, then what occurs in your life? What happens? We all know this. If you allow depression to control your every thought, it's not long before people of that kind get terribly sick, end up in either mental institutions or hospitals, or desperately ill, or die. Yeah, we know this is well documented. If you feel tremendously angry, rage toward others, and you foster others to join you in your rage, even more powerful and negative cause, can you escape being incarcerated or killed? Your successes, whatever you think they may be in that mind state, won't bring much satisfaction. So it's as simple as that. The same applies to a nation or to any group. It's about attitude and intent. Attitude informs intent. Intent is the natural progression of moment to moment from the previous moment. It instantiates the next moment. Yeah? So attitude, intent, they're just that formation of karma. How are you forming your karma? How are you influencing your karma? The energy that you are a manifestation of. So that's why Nichiren is going into this. And he's saying if you're not making your attitude and intent and forming it in a life-affirming way, an ultimate way, a way of realizing your Buddha nature, anything less is taking a detour, moving you away from the potential you have in each and every moment. This is dis-ease. This is suffering. The situation in Japan today is dreadful. Everybody's running around the wrong way. Incomparable to those in India and China. Japanese people seem to stand by Buddhism, but in fact, they support those masters who destroyed Buddhism. And whether they're knowing of that or ignorant of that, they can't escape the equation. The equation is the equation, right? It is hard for the ignorant to understand this. The ordinary wise man also cannot understand it. Heavenly beings in low classes cannot understand it. Therefore, the disorder in Japan will be worse than that of ancient China and India. We move on to the next section, which is titled, Which Should Be Trusted, the Words of Sutras or the Words of People? We've been running into this consistently for quite a while now, right? What does the sutra say? What did Shakyamuni say? Follow the law, not the person. Follow Myoho Renge Kyo. Follow self-practice, self-directed enlightenment. This is a self-directed practice. It's very helpful if we have one another to communicate with, to remind ourselves of this fact. It can be at times very empowering. I can change this. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. At other times, it can seem like, how can I change this? How can I possibly? The currents against me. The currents, right? Life is so difficult. How can I possibly surmount this? Try. Do it. Chant. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. You will influence it. You will change it. How could you not? That kind of confidence. Yeah. Nichiren goes on, in the Sutra of the Extinction of the Dharma, it is said, quote, after my extinction in the defiled world, filled with the 5 rebellious errors, the negative influences, their way will prevail, and demons will be Buddhist monks destroying the way of the Buddha. Misdirected monks teaching corrupted teachings. Evil-minded or negative-minded or ignorant people will be as numerous as the sands in the sea, while good people will be rare and few in number, end quote. The Nirvana Sutra says, or states, quote, the number of people who believe in the Nirvana Sutra will be as little as soil on a fingernail, right? We've read that before. While those who do not believe in this sutra will be as numerous as the soils of the worlds in 10 directions. Which the soil, remember, soil represents formation, the potential manifestation. And the worlds are the universe itself in the 10 directions. The words of these sutras have impressed me quite deeply. Today in Japan, everybody thinks that he believes in the Lotus Sutra, which makes no slanderers of the true Dharma. But in these sutras, it is said that the latter age of degeneration, the number of people who slander the true Dharma, shall be as great as the soil of the worlds in the universes, while the number of those who believe in the true Dharma shall be as little as the soil on a fingernail. So what the sutra says and what the people believe are as different as fire and water. At present, people in this country say, quote, in Japan only, Nichiren is the slanderer of the true Dharma, end quote. This is quite against what the sutras say. The sutra on the extinction of the Dharma says that the good are few, and the Nirvana Sutra, that believers of this sutra are as little as the soil on a fingernail. According to the sutras only, I, Nichiren, in Japan, can be compared to the little soil on a fingernail and one of the few good men. Which do you believe in, the words of the sutras or those of the people? So by example, he is declaring himself the votary of the Lotus Sutra, is he not? He's showing all of these as example in all these letters that he's written. The situation, it makes it absolutely obvious that I'm the kid in the crown going, the emperor's naked. I'm the one who's calling out the correct transmission of Shakyamuni's own words, his own sermons, the meaning of his teachings. And yet I'm facing all this opposition. By who, by the way? Who's opposing me? The elites, the powerful, the samurai, right? We live in a life and death world, and they don't like that I'm disturbing their comfortable little hierarchy. Not as comfortable as it seems, by the way, because they're constantly being afflicted, nation-wise and personally, with sickness and great weather events and civil wars within their own clans, and now invasion from abroad. Guess things aren't going as well as they'd hoped. So there must be something wrong here. And I'm quoting from the sutras, Nichiren says, and it's obvious what's wrong. So this next portion is called Reading the Lotus Sutra, which is what we do when we do Gangyo, right? Question. The Nirvana Sutra states that the number of people who practice this sutra are as little as soil on a fingernail, while you hold that the number of those who practice the Lotus Sutra is as rare as the soil on a fingernail. What's the difference? Answer. The Nirvana Sutra preaches, quote, in the Lotus Sutra, 8,000 Sravaka were guaranteed to obtain Buddhahood in the future by the Buddha, right? This means that the Lotus Sutra finished reaping the great harvest in autumn to store for winter, leaving only the gleaning to the Nirvana Sutra, end quote. Grandmaster Miao says that the Great Sutra considers the Lotus Sutra to be the supreme. The Great Sutra stands for the Nirvana Sutra, so the Nirvana Sutra regards the Lotus Sutra as the supreme teaching. However, the people of the Nirvana school say that the Nirvana Sutra is superior to the Lotus Sutra. This is like calling a master a follower, and low-ranking warriors high-ranking warriors. Reading the Nirvana Sutra means reading the Lotus Sutra. A sage is content even when he himself is despised, so long as his king is respected. Likewise, the Nirvana Sutra dislikes those who despise the Lotus Sutra and who admire the Nirvana Sutra. You should know from this that if those who read the Flower Garland Sutra, the Sutra of Meditation on the Buddha of Infinite Life, Amida, and the Great Sun Buddha Sutra, think that the Lotus Sutra is inferior to these sutras, they are against the spirit of the sutras, because they all are leading to the lotus. And if you don't get that, if you don't understand that, then you're working counter to the very thing that they're working toward. You should know also that if those who read the Lotus Sutra think that the attainment of Buddhahood can also be realized by reading other sutras, it cannot be said that they have truly read the Lotus Sutra, even though they may seem to believe in it, right? They're just cursorily reading it as perfunctory practices of Buddhism, but they're not invested. They haven't read and captured its meaning. They don't understand that every other sutra ever written was in its goal was pointing to practicing the Lotus Sutra. That's the Lotus Sutra is the teaching of self-realizing Buddha. If you get that, then you understand that all the other teachings were to get you to that point. Not that they're of equal value, or I just like the way this one sounds better. Then you're not really digging deep into the meaning of the teaching. You see? Slandering the Lotus Sutra by its admirers. For instance, Grandmaster Chia Xiang wrote 10 facets of the treatise on the profundity of the Lotus Sutra, admiring the Lotus Sutra. But Grandmaster Miao Lo criticized him, saying, quote, as the commentary contains slandering meanings within the very words of admiration, it's not really praising the sutra. You got to get your mind straight, right? So Grandmaster Chia Xiang was a slanderer of the Lotus Sutra. Therefore, after surrendering to Grandmaster Tendai, he never the Lotus Sutra, saying that he would never fail to fall into evil realms if he did so. He waited on Grandmaster Tendai, serving as a stool for him for 7 years. He realized his own egoism. Yeah. Grandmaster Tsuen wrote 10 facets of the praising the profundity of the Lotus Sutra, in which he admired the Lotus Sutra, but Grandmaster Dengyo charged him, saying, quote, though he admired the Lotus Sutra, he in effect killed its spirit. So he feigned a great work talking about the Lotus Sutra, but only to minimize it, not admire it. So he worked completely counter to it, yeah? Attitude, intent, it's primary. Considering these facts, there are many people who fall into the hell of incessant suffering among those who read and admire the Lotus Sutra. Don't blame the Lotus Sutra for that. It's the attitude and intent of those who read it. Do they practice it correctly? This is vitally important. Right? This is why I chastise those who train others to look at the Lotus Sutra as though it's some wish-granting jewel for better relationships, better new jobs, a new car, things. That's a total incorrect attitude. It runs counter to what we're trying to do. The Lotus Sutra is about realizing our Buddha nature. From that comes this magnificent world of opportunity. Everything one would need, free of obstacles. Cars, jobs, relationships don't matter. They will manifest as they need to support Buddha-ness. That comes first. Collecting stuff, that's the very thing Buddhism is trying to detach us from. They appear to laud the Lotus Sutra, but in fact they run counter to it. Chia Xiang and Chuen already slandered the one vehicle teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Are not Kobo, Chikaku, and Chisho definitely among those who despise the Lotus Sutra? Dasaku Keita, Nichiren Shoshu, SGI, many of them don't even use the mandala anymore. What are you practicing? Same thing. As for Grandmaster Chia Xiang, he could not get rid of his accumulated errors of slandering the Lotus Sutra, even though he stopped giving lectures on the sutra, released his disciples, and waited on Grandmaster Tendai by serving him as a stool for him to climb up onto the preaching platform. Those who despised never despising Bodhisattva had to suffer in the hell for 1,000 kalpa for their heavy errors, even though they later came to believe and follow this Bodhisattva. So even if Kobo, Chikaku, and Chisho read the Lotus Sutra in repentance, their deadly errors will never be eliminated. He's, again, using hyperbole to indicate the severity of their error. How much more so when they had no idea of repentance, continued slandering the Lotus Sutra, and practiced the teaching of Shingon Buddhism day and night, propagating it from morning till night. It's horrible what they're doing. But Shakyamuni's already told us that even those who tried to kill him, Shakyamuni, can attain enlightenment, can awaken their Buddha-ness. The question is, how much they will suffer until they do that is a function of their mind, their attitude. How can they change their intent? Bodhisattva Vasubandhu and Bodhisattva Ashvagosha, repenting their errors of defeating Mahayana doctrine with Hinayana doctrine, tried to cut out their tongues. Bodhisattva Vasubandhu vowed that he would never speak of the Agama Sutras or Hinayana Sutras, though they were the Buddha's words. Bodhisattva Ashvagosha, in penitence, defeated Mahayana or Hinayana doctrine by writing the, quote, awakening of conviction in the Mahayana. Inviting Grandmaster Tendai to see him, Grandmaster Chiesang made a vow in front of 100 wise men, throwing himself on the earth, sweating profusely, and his eyes full of tears. He vowed that he would never again see his disciples nor lecture on the Lotus Sutra, lest they should think that he knew it. Although he was regarded more highly than he was, and was older than Grandmaster Tendai, because age used to have a lot of meaning as far as respect and knowledge. Chiesang crossed a river carrying Grandmaster Tendai on his back in front of the people on purpose to demonstrate his lowly status compared to the wonderful attitude, intent, knowledge of the Lotus Sutra that Tendai had. Going to a preaching platform, he let Grandmaster Tendai use his back as a stool for preaching the platform. For reaching the platform, sorry. When Grandmaster Tendai passed away, he went to see Emperor Sui and cried, rubbing his feet, as if he were a child who had been too late to see his mother's last moments. Grandmaster Chiesang's treatise on the profundity of the Lotus Sutra does not slander the Lotus Sutra very much. He wrote in it that the difference between the Lotus Sutra and the rest of the Mahayana Sutras lies merely in the depth of theology, not in spirit. This may be, however, fundamental in slandering the true Dharma. Both Chengquan of Kigon and Subakarashima of Shingon wrote that the Great Sun Buddha Sutra and the Lotus Sutra are the same in principle. If Chiesang is sinful, Tripitaka Master Subakarashima cannot be free from the same errors. The next section is Shingon Masters and their prayers. So, we will go into that in the next sutra, or in the next video, sorry. But one can see that there's a concerted effort by Nichiren here to identify the current situation in Japan. And he's offering these insights in the spirit of thanking his master from the Seshoji Temple, who has recently passed away, and sending these nuggets of insight to the current leadership at Seshoji and the other disciples there, and whatever new abbot is there, that they share these nuggets that Nichiren so appreciates learning through the scholarship of his now deceased master at Seshoji. In this way, Nichiren is propagating the doctrine of the Lotus Sutra, is he not? So Nichiren never quits any way he can. And in this case, he's demonstrating tremendous gratitude for what he has learned and the insights he has gained. So we will continue with this in the next video. Thank you for, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Use the resources, use the audio podcast you can download from anywhere, the Buddhahood podcast. Use the threefoldlotus.com website. There's lots of material there you can download for free. There's the bookstore. There's the mandala store, cafepress.com/gohanzon. Make sure you have a good mandala. And with that, I thank my patrons. John, thank you for upping your donations. That's incredible. Helps keep this channel thriving or growing, existing. Yeah, that's the world today. And keep your practice strong. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Just instantiate your Buddha-ness. Yeah, everything will come from that. Guaranteed. All right. I will let you go, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.